And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the MrWarrenHayes Show. Hello and welcome. I am Warren. Hope you are having a nice week so far. It is Thursday. It is July 31st. We are officially about to enter into the month of August. Summer is slowly dripping behind us. Folks, I cannot tell you how happy I am at this prospect. I am so sick of summer. And look, good for you if you are enjoying the the scalding heat, the unrelenting beams of sunlight that careen down from the heavens and bombard you with all sorts of radiation. Look, if you are a summer enjoyer and you are particular about going outside and enjoying all of the wonderful things that summer offers, that's tremendous, and I'm really happy for you. I cannot wait for it to stop. It is a nice chilly day here today in Quebec City. Well, comparatively, it's like 63 degrees right now Fahrenheit. It's something to that effect. So why do I know it's in Fahrenheit? Well, because I checked and I checked specifically the temperature in Fahrenheit so I could tell Kristen, my girlfriend who lives in the United States, what the temperature is right now. And, Celsius doesn't mean shit to her. And I don't know how to do proper conversions from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So I couldn't tell. So, I can tell you, this was it, right? This is what it was in Fahrenheit, but off the top of my head, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what it is in Celsius. It means nothing to me. These conversions, all this math is no good for me. Just like summer at this point is no good for me either. So we're on our way, folks. We're very, very close if you're in the same boat as I am. And in the meantime, we're going to be talking about AEW Dynamite. Specifically the one that happened yesterday on July 30, 2025, from the Aragon Ballroom over there in Chicago. Chicago, Illinois, of course, just to make sure, because there's very likely another Chicago out there, right? There's probably another city named Chicago somewhere, and there's like 25 people living there. Like there's a Toronto. There's a city called Toronto on Prince Edward Island, and there's legitimately like 30 people who live there. Well, when I visited out there, I thought it was immensely funny that the Toronto on Prince Edward Island is like one of the smallest towns, registered that I've ever seen. I thought it was kind of funny. I don't know why I'm going off on so many tangents. I'm going to tell you. I don't know why I'm scattered all over the place. Might be a poor indication of what's coming up here as far as my train of thought is going to go for Dynamite. Why don't we just start talking about it? This episode of Dynamite that had 1,194 tickets distributed, officially a sellout for the setup that AEW had at the Aragon Ballroom for their final Dynamite of this residency in Chicago. They are going to be recording their final show of the residency tonight. If you're listening to this on the Thursday, they're going to be recording. Well, we're not only recording but broadcasting tonight's collision as the and it will be what type of sentence am I trying to say here? They are with Collision tonight. Jesus Christ, Warren. With Collision tonight, this will be the last show of AEW's residency at the Aragon Ballroom, because it really wasn't that hard, was it? God almighty. But Dynamite was the last Dynamite last evening. That's what we're going to focus on. And they sold everything out. I think overall it was very successful. I think they had fantastic crowds the entire time. The ballroom looked fantastic. I think it's a great venue. I think it's a great venue for TV like this. Small capacity for attendance. There's I feel like they, especially last night, they probably could have packed in more people. I know some people were questioning the logic of putting Hangman versus Mox, putting the rematch from All in Texas in in the ballroom there, where they probably could have been able to push more tickets in any other venue. But I also understand that it is that it's more of a TV thing than an attendance thing. TV that's the major source of income with the media deals. So those are the people that you have to appeal to. That's what you have to show off. Plus, it was Shark Week, sweeps, all that stuff, it's all ratings talk, and we don't necessarily get into ratings here. But nonetheless, it was a very TV focused deal, as opposed to one where it's like, let's try to pack as many people as we can in the building. Otherwise, sure, they could have kept it for next week without an issue, right? But hey, we got it last night for this Dynamite. And look, the show, the building was sold out. So I kind of hope they go back. I think it's a great venue. If there was a way for them to free up more seats, right? Not have their production take up as much as it does, and maybe get more people in there, I think that would be great. But I at the same time, what do I know? I'm talking. I don't know what their production needs are exactly. Clearly, they're significant. But I'm just saying, if there was a way for them to free up more space to pack in more people into the ballroom, I think that would be, I think that would be even better. I think that would be even more successful. As far as the show itself, I thought it was a fine show. Maybe not like the tippy-toppiest show that they've done. I think there's some stuff that worked well. I thought, look, without jumping ahead too much in the review here, I thought the Mox Hangman match was absolutely fantastic. There's some really good stuff that happened on the show, but there's also stuff that really didn't land at the same time. And I don't know. I feel like this is the kind of review that I'm coming in with a gut feeling, but maybe as we're talking, this gut feeling will as I'm talking and breaking things down more openly as opposed to just keeping everything in my head. I feel like just as a master ceramist, with someone who uses ceramics, who makes ceramics, we'll take their clay and we'll create something beautiful. We'll take shape and we'll all make sense. I think that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be ceramist is probably not a word. I'm sorry for today. Quite honest. Look, if anything, here's the thing. I'm not kidding when I said at the start of the review that I'm done with summer. I've been kind of grumpy over the past couple of days because of the heat, because I'm just like, this has got to stop. Now I'm sick. Now I've hit like my top level, but today's really cool. It's a nice day. It's a beautiful, cool summer day. And I think I'm just like so excited that I don't know, like I don't know how to focus my energy. I think that's the thing, is that I'm just ready to bounce all over the place because I'm so happy, as opposed to the past couple of days where I'm grumpy old WarrenHayes. Anyway, the show opens up with a very complete video package regarding tonight's rematch between Hangman and Mox. It's one of the most complete video packages that they've done, I find, to promote any match in this promotion. well done. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was a little long. I thought it was a little long because I was like, well, yes, we the rematch just happened. Well, the match happened just 2 weeks ago. I don't necessarily need a full feud refresher here to break down everything for this match tonight. I don't necessarily need that. Anyway, show started off with the team of Talent Name defeating the Outrunners. Look, you want to talk commitment to a bit here, where the idea is that the Bucks are being disrespected and everything. Getting the already in the ring jobber entrance was formidable. Like, just with that, I had a good laugh when the Outrunners came in. They did their little entrance and they were doing their little spinneroo dances in the ring as the Bucks were already there standing, in the ring. And I was pointing to my screen and I said, wait, the Bucks are already in the ring. And I thought that was phenomenal. But then they went and also inserted they did the Chiron at the bottom of the screen where, was with placeholder text, right? They put in the template as opposed to doing one specifically for the Bucks where it's Talent Name and stat and social, which was hilarious. The thing that I really enjoyed, as much as I thought that was funny, I thought the full gag of them already being in the ring, getting the already in the ring presentation was phenomenal. And it's commitment to the bit at this point. They also established here that the money that Tony Khan has been throwing around in these $100,000 matches and whatnot, right? With the prize being an extra purse, it's been coming out of the Bucks EVP salaries, which I think is, it's unnecessary. I know it's part of the bit and it's meant to kind of be funny, but it's still, you're kind of like, oh, okay. It kind of makes sense where Tony's like, well, I have this money budgeted. Let me give it back to the locker room. So I think that was actually funny. Quick paced, high energy match here that I really liked. With stereo dives, double team spots, everything was really good. The crowd is into the "you son of a bitch," Predator hand drop, elbow drop. You use hands nonetheless. They clasp their hands, but it's the elbows that drop. Again, I'm really sorry. So I'm really sorry. So this will go either of two ways. This will either be one of the great AEW reviews or one of the worst. There's not going to be a middle on this one. So you've got Turbo Floyd. He's taking a lot of the offense in this match. He's kicking out of a lot of big time offense as well, but the match ends after Talent Name hit the DK driver on old Turbo for the win. I thought this was really good. Before we get to the post-match stuff, I thought this was really good. The Bucks are phenomenal as always, and the Bucks are motivated. And I've mentioned this, but the motivation is ongoing. They're into it, and we're all benefiting. I think the Bucks are still tremendous. They're still one of the greatest tag teams of all time, and it shows here. But I want to just touch on a little pivot here that I'm doing. Just a slight pivot. Remember months ago, where I was sitting here in this chair, or maybe not, maybe I was still doing the review. It doesn't matter where I was sitting, but I was doing this review and I was telling you, that we shouldn't push the Outrunners. You remember that? Because the Outrunners were a good bit. They were a good comedy gag team, right? They were there for the ha-has. They were there for some levity. But I forewarned anyone, anyone and everyone who were excited at the thought of, or not excited at the thought, but who were starting to push Tony Khan to like get the Outrunners, the tag team belts, and so on and so forth. And I think this was particularly prominent around the time that Private Party was having their championship run. And I urged caution, and I even said outright, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm not pushing the Outrunners, because you will get a situation where if you push them, people will get sick of them and they're going to turn on them, not unlike what they did with the Acclaimed, right? Because they are a joke team, or at least they were, because here's where I wanted to, this is where I want to, what I want to bring up here is that I feel like they're losing a lot of the comedy shtick without compromising what they are, what the tag team is supposed to be. But they're not like, they're not doing the 4-3 resolution for their entrance anymore, with the scan lines and everything. They're not doing that anymore. And then with the the videotaped grain, and they stopped doing that. They've toned down a little bit on the silliness, but just enough to not too much where they're completely abandoning their identity, but they've toned it down, and their work is becoming more solid in the ring as well. I'm warming up to the Outrunners a lot more as legitimate tag team contenders as opposed to just a comedy act. I think for the Outrunners to work, like to be interesting, they'll always have to maintain this this idea that they're a throwback, in a big exaggerated manner, a throwback to the tag teams of the 1980s, but they're combining it, they're making it so that it doesn't take over what they're doing in the ring, and I can appreciate that. It's not unlike what happened to Timeless Tony Storm as well. We're on to something. Now, I'm not saying tomorrow morning they need to strap them up. And look, they've just been knocked out of this tournament, which I think is fine. I think the Bucks need to be in this tournament. Although it would have been funny that the Jabrones get knocked out, but that's a whole other train of thought. I think the best decision was to have the Bucks in this match. Like I said, I'm not clamoring, not heading to the barricades for an Outrunners title run, but it seems a lot more plausible for it to happen to me now than it did months ago. Again, I'm not saying that they should be belted up today, but I'm saying like it feels more plausible for someone to tell me Tony should belt up the Outrunners. Sure, we could, yeah. Much more than a few months ago. Anyway, after the match, a bit of a weird post-match. Kazuchika Okada comes to join the Bucks and attack the Outrunners. So they all triple team the Outrunners, and then Swerve Strickland comes out for the save, and then everyone starts fighting, and Swerve does the stomp onto the people on the floor with the heels, of course, the Elite, with the Outrunners and Swerve standing tall. Now, clearly they want to set up a 6-man tag here, which I'm completely okay with. But what a convoluted way to go about it. Is it just me? Here's the one thing that I'm just having trouble connecting, and it's why did Kazuchika Okada, who is much more associated with the Don Callis family, I'm not saying, he needs to cut ties with everyone else, but why did Kazuchika Okada come to the ring to help the Bucks beat up the Outrunners, where there's really no beef with the Outrunners? The Bucks just defeated them in the tag team match. I don't know why Okada came out specifically to do that, other than to justify Swerve coming out to attack Okada. He's got Okada in his sights right now. Other than that, I don't understand I don't understand the psychology really behind all of this, other than coming up with an excuse to have a trios match. I'm like, it felt like a little too contrived to me. I didn't quite get that one. But, like I said, probably, we'll probably get that match next week on Dynamite. Big trios action. Swerving the Outrunners versus the Elite. There you go. Let's go backstage where Renee Paquette is about to interview Mark Briscoe. He starts to talk about MJF, which brings in Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. And basically Ricochet is taking umbrage to the fact that Mark Briscoe is not focusing on him, considering that he is going to be an opponent later on in the evening. And instead of talking about MJF, he's like, well, you don't have your priorities straight. And, Briscoe says, look, I got you, but I'm on the war path for MJF. Briscoe is super focused on going for MJF, but Ricochet, sort of brushes it off, and so on and so forth. Basically, hyping up two things at once. The match with Ricochet, leaving you understand that maybe Mark Briscoe is not entirely focused, and that might be a disadvantage to him. Speaking of MJF, he is at the locker room for the Hurt Syndicate. Now, since he's a member, I don't know why he felt compelled to knock on the door before going in. If you're in front of the locker room of your unit and you are a member of said unit, then you should just walk in, right? But he felt compelled to knock. Look, in any extent, that it's a little nitpicky. It's a little nonsense. But he tries to smooth things over with Shelton Benjamin, who comes to answer. Shelton tells him, MVP's not here because he's kind of disgusted about what happened last week. He's kind of disgusted of you. And Bobby Lashley, well, he doesn't like you. And, then he pulls out his watch that MJF gave him a few weeks ago. And basically Shelton says, you must think I'm some kind of idiot to think that I couldn't recognize a Temu watch from an original legit Rolex. And basically tosses it on the ground and tells MJF he is no longer in the Hurt business. He is no longer welcome, and slams the door on him. And Max is not happy about that. I've seen I've seen people scratching their heads wondering, how did all of this fall apart so quickly when MJF was spending so much time trying to get in, and we were jumping through hoops for weeks upon weeks at a time, and it's barely been a month since MJF has been a member of the Hurt business, and he's already been kicked out. Well, here's the first thing. Maybe he's not kicked out just yet. Maybe he has a plan up his sleeve where he will get all three guys to forgive him. That's one thing. Second of all, let's say he does get kicked out. It's the most MJF thing, don't you think? Doesn't it absolutely work in his character where, he does his best to join a group where he thinks they are going to end up being his lackeys, which Didn't quite turn out, to be that. Was actually a very poor read on his part, and it all blows up in his face very, very quickly. I don't know. Like, what is otherwise the best thing? Here's what is the other situation for us to have. Bobby Lashley and MJF just sharing, disrespectful glares from across the ring of, or during promos, and having this drag out for months and months and months. I'm not saying that's the only avenue that we could take, but it's like I'm surprised at it, but it also makes sense that Max would put himself in a situation where the thing would just blow up in his face. I don't understand necessarily why this is such a problem. And I think the problem, it goes along the lines of that that internet fans have decided that MJF is not good and that what he does is annoying. So MJF bad, ergo this angle is bad. And I think that's just how it goes. I really do think that's the most significant part of this analysis, I believe. Because ultimately it connects with MJF's personality. He's tried to be in groups before, and it never really worked out. Hell, he even started his own group, and that fell apart. And the only reason he was able to stay associated with a guy like with Wardlow back in the days because he held legal documents over his head. That was the whole deal, right? So it just continues. Yeah, I don't know. It just continues to show MJF doesn't play well with others. He can't, he gets in his own way and he rubs people the wrong way. And look, MVP was doing him a favor. Shelton told him as much. And, MVP really stuck his neck out for you. And this is where we're at now. I don't know. Why it all connects. It all kind of makes sense. It's all logical in MJF's progression. And I really don't know what people are that upset about. To me, it all makes sense. We spent so much time on this. Well, we would have spent time on something else. This is MJF. We all know how MJF works at this point. He's one of the top guys of the company. Are we really going to not expect him to have mic time and a lot of mic time because his capacity to cut promos is one of his main features? Aren't you supposed to feature the strengths? So, yes, he's going to be in promo segments. He's going to have mic time. And if it's, not in these angle situations, it would have been something else. You know what I mean? It's kind of, I don't understand. I personally don't understand all the, this overall attitude that people have, that a lot of people online have developed in regards to MJF, and just outright call him, just outright say, no, he's bad. And will dismiss, hand wave everything he does. I don't understand. I think a lot of these people are getting worked and they don't realize it. And I guess that's all to MJF's credit. Christian Cage then comes to the ring. He was announced on the show. He was going to address the situation here. And he gets to the ring, admits that he's an asshole, and reflects on his recent losses and whatnot. And then he rants about Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian and Mother Wayne, saying that they've turned on him and whatnot. And he officially disowns his sons, Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. And then he basically says that Mother Wayne has an enormous vagina, which, wasn't great. And then he goes on stage. As he's leaving, he walks up the stage. Mother Wayne comes out to confront him, but it's actually a ruse where Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian run in, attack him from behind. Nick Wayne plasters him with the Ring of Honor belt and the TV title belt, I should say. And then they do a standing concerto, which didn't look great, but standing. It had been a while since we had seen a standing upright concerto. Not necessarily an easy thing to do. And there you go. That's the segment. I've reduced it significantly because the segment was very long, unnecessarily long, and truly not Christian's greatest work. It really was droning, a little scattershot. He was tripping over his own words, and that's my gimmick. It wasn't good. It really wasn't. It was a tiresome segment that tried to do things, but I don't know what we were trying to accomplish here. Trying to maintain Christian as a heel, or at least as a cool heel, and disowning the worst heels who turned on him. Then talking about Adam Copeland, how we're so much different but also so much alike. We know where we're going with this, right? I mean, that's not even a question. But the problem that I saw here was that, well, frankly, this kind of sucked because it was all over the place, and I don't know what we were trying to say outside of he's disowning Nick and Kip, and he's moving on. I don't know what I don't know what we were trying to do here. It's interesting that Christian Cage, who historically in AEW has been a champion at promos, particularly in his heel turn, right? It's interesting that all this time he's been a fantastic promo, and the minute he gets back into Edge's, Adam Copeland's orbit, it falls apart. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, not a good segment. Droned on too long. I'm ready to move on with it, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I've expressed my concerns over this Edge and Christian reunion tour that they want to, or match that they want to do, probably at All Out in Toronto in September. That's likely the scenario, right? I've expressed concerns mostly because I don't have all that much faith in Adam Copeland, in his creative, and particularly not with his in-ring. But I have more in regards to Christian Cage, right? But if this is like the opening salvo that is going to lead us to that moment where Nick Wayne and Kip, or Luchasaurus or whoever, band together to take on Edge and Christian, if this is the opening firing, kickoff, whatever that we're going to use here to get us to that point, I'm very, very apprehensive now. Now I'm just arm's length and another arm's length on top of that. If I had stretchy arms like Reed Richards to keep, I'd do it. I'd do twice the length of my arm's length to keep it at arm's length. It'd be a double length arm's length. It on the length, not the width, the girth of my arms. Stretchy. So you stretch it out like Reed Richards. I'm mentioning the Fantastic Four because it's topical. I'm being super topical right now. FTR cut a promo backstage. They're with Stoke, of course, and they're hyping up their upcoming match against the Bang Bang Gang, and then talent names show up again. The Bucks, of course. And, there's, and they say, hey, it's good to see you. And they give some facetious little congratulations to each other, but you can tell, it's all disingenuous. There's mutual respect, but also they don't really like each other. And Dax hopes that they'll meet in the finals. We'll see about that. And, Stokely pretends to go after one of the Bucks now that they're not an EVP anymore. It's mostly a jump scare more than anything else, and the Bucks take exception to that. Hangman Adam Page defeated Jon Moxley to retain the AEW World Championship. They aired this at the 9 a.m. slot, which broke a lot of people's brains. Again, a lot of people just didn't understand. It's like, shit company putting on their big match in the middle of the show. Why are they doing this? And look, these are moments where you realize where you can find the dummies out there, and then you can find them on your social media and then mute them. You can block them. You can get them out of your sight because these are dummies. These are people who are dummies who just think the main event should go on at the end and the biggest match is the main event, and that's how it goes. When in reality, the ratings component of this show is much more important. Like, there are strategic reasons for Tony Khan to put this match at 9 p.m., which is already a very important, which is already a very important quarter hour for ratings, particularly to maintain for the rest of the show, but also for just plain old ratings to be able to go and show them off to advertisers and whatnot and make your broadcast partner happy. So if we're in a sweeps week type of situation and you want to show off how great you are at the 9 o'clock hour, at the top of the hour for your programming, well, then you go and put on the biggest match you possibly can, or at least one of them. I don't know what's so hard to understand here. And the 9 o'clock spot has always been privileged by AEW, has always been privileged. They always put big people, big stars, big time angles, big time matches at the 9 p.m. slot. I don't know. Look, again, like, the people who are complaining here are people who don't pay attention. They're dummies. They don't watch the program. They just see World Championship match coming on at 9 and not at 10 or in the final quarter hour. And final quarter hours are death. They're death. They're death for every fucking show on planet Earth. That's all there is to it. And AEW has no lead-in, doesn't have to supply any lead-in ratings for a show coming on at 10. There's nothing that comes on TBS after that. TBS is really wants to push forward. It's preposterous. It's nonsense. So they wanted the big quarter hour. They wanted the big 9 o'clock rating. Now we'll see how that turns out when the ratings come out. I can't believe I'm talking about ratings all this much, but we'll see how, and typically it'll be later today. We'll see how that played out for them, right? We'll see if they were able to draw a big number at 9 p.m. because that's what they were doing. That's what they wanted to do. Why put it on at the end? Show that they can lead in at 9 o'clock with big ratings. I think that's important. More than, oh yeah, at 9:45, we can get a big rating. Most people are gone anyway at that point. Most people are tuning out at that point. You just go see the trend lines. I'm not even a ratings expert and I can see it. You can see people like slowly, and that's always been the case. That's always been, and not just for Dynamite. So where do you want more people to see your big match? 9 p.m. That's a big, you either start the show with it or, you start off your second hour with it. Anyway, anyone who's complaining about that either doesn't understand or is just a plain old dummy or bad faith or a bad faith dummy. Bad faith dummies are possible. Anyway, this match, of course, had everyone banned at ringside. They even have security out to push that forward. And right then and there, when they make a deal out of the security there to enforce the rules, immediately I sort of grit my teeth. I'm like, oh, something's gonna happen here. Besides, and I was, quite frankly, since it was happening at 9 p.m., I was not particularly looking. I wasn't particularly thinking that this match was going to finish clean, that we were going to get a good, proper finish here. Turns out we did, and boy, oh boy, did it ever. But look, real quickly, before we get to the finish, look, I thought this match was awesome. I thought it was terrific. It was good, solid pro wrestling, executed with heart, with great fucking work by both Hangman and Mox. I thought Mox was so good here. Mox was tremendous in his role. And this is a guy now in his career where he doesn't do a ton of shit, but what he does with a little extra crank, a little extra snap to it, a little extra spat to it. Just a little. He's got that viciousness in everything that he does. It goes such a long way because he's not a guy who's going to start bouncing around the ropes and jumping off of shit all the time. That's not Jon Moxley, and he understands that, and he understands what his character has to do here. And his job is to be brutal and grind down the Hangman. That's what he does. And Hangman, his best role is in this type of situation where he gets to fight back, and he fights back, and he's snug. You know those forearms that he was throwing at the very, very tippy top of the match, right? He reverses Mox out of the corner. Mox was beating him up, and he reverses out of there, and he starts pummeling him with beautiful forearm shots, just like beautiful forearm shots that are and they're coming in hot. And my God, all right, there's a little snuff to that. It's tremendous. There's nice snug work by the Hangman, by both guys, and they're dropping each other on their heads. They're doing German suplexes and Mox. Mox is doing his submission game, but he's not like focusing on going into a this big ground game and so on and so forth. Blood sport Mox. I think that's the best way to define him. No, instead he's just like using his submissions to like I said earlier, to grind down the Hangman. And there's this one spot where Hangman attempts to do a Death Valley driver, and Mox counters it into a double wrist lock, and then follows up with some great elbows. I'm looking at this. This fucking rules. This is great pro wrestling. Page lands a Liger bomb. Mox dumps it into the steel steps, and then we go to break. When we come back, Mox gets, we have some action, and eventually Mox gets sets up the announce table, right? Brings Hangman on top of it, but Hangman reverses whatever Mox was setting up into the Deadeye right on the table. But Mox then hits a tombstone pile driver on the steps. I think it was a tombstone. Was it a tombstone or a plain old? Look, he drives Hangman with a pile driver, tombstone or not, onto the steel steps, gets him back into the ring, does a Gotch style pile driver in the ring as well. Hangman nearly gets Mox to tap with a label lock. Of course, a nice little homage to Danielson. And again, I was looking at how Page applied the move here. he set everything up again. Did the arm twist and the putting the arm away, in between his legs, and everything looked really fucking crisp. Like, Hangman likes to work snug. And a guy like Moxley is not going to bitch afterwards. He's not going to go see Tony Khan afterwards and say, I need to speak to HR or whatever the fuck, right? He's going to go backstage after. He's going to go find the Hangman, and he's going to pat him on the back a couple of times. Good job, kid. It's going to be that type of situation. Now, the Death Riders arrive, and this is where I started to groan a little bit. And, took me a little out of the match, because the Death Riders arrive and I'm like, oh, come on. And of course, all of security come to take care of these guys, right? I understand why they did it. We'll understand in a second or two, but then I'm like, oh, well, they're keeping everything exposed for someone else to do some stupid shit. And it was Marina Shafir who threw the AEW title into the ring. Mox plasters Paige with it, but Paige kicks out because there was a ref bump. I forgot to mention there was a ref bump that led to all of this, and I was annoyed. I was annoyed because we were really having a super hot, great pro wrestling match. I was really, really upset about it. You know what I mean? But the interference didn't work. The referee regained his senses. He tosses Marina, and then the Death Riders all go back with the security. And the reason why all the security was there as well was because Darby Allin showed up on one of the balconies and swan dived. I think it was a swan dive, right? He dove off anyway, off the balcony onto the mass of people, to a huge reaction from the crowd. Mox was looking at this and was like, oh, what the hell is going on with this kid, right? So we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to jump ahead. I'm sorry about that. We'll get to that in a second. Look, back inside the ring then, we get a buckshot lariat. Mox fights and gets a bulldog choke in. I'm like, okay, this isn't finished yet, but Paige escapes, lands the Deadeye, lands another buckshot lariat, and there you go. That is the win. So I'm telling you, like, I think in-ring wise, like wrestling wise, I like this match more than the All in Texas match. Is that sacrilegious? Is this a hot take? I don't think so. I think the work here was superb. Superb. I might be going a little overboard, but it really was tremendous. It was excellent work by both of these guys. Like, if I were to give it the old star rating treatment, I think I'd give this a 4.5 stars, which is the same rating that I gave the All In match, but it's for two different reasons, where the All In match was, it was the vibe, it was the moment, it was that event that they created around losing, and everyone coming in to drive the Death Riders away and make sure that Hangman is able to do this the right way. I think all of that sort of culminates into making it into making it a 4.5 star match. This one here was just pure wrestling that was so good. If it hadn't been for the interference that really did annoy me and took me out of the match and was ultimately completely unnecessary, if only for the Darby Allin spot. But you could have had the Darby Allin spot happen in another way that wouldn't have, interfered in the match. Anyway, I probably would have given this 4 3/4 stars. Now, we're arguing about a quarter star here. We're making a big deal out of a quarter star. But it's a big deal to me, goddammit. A fantastic match. These two guys together are great. They read off of each other. They've got great chemistry. You could rerun Mox Hangman anytime and I'd be into it. These two guys are phenomenal. Now, I really like that Hangman is establishing himself as so strong from the get-go, right? Like, he beat Mox here. Clean as a fucking sheet again. And what a definitive win. He hits him with the first finisher and the second finisher. Boom, boom. Like, you cannot argue anything about anyone, about creative control or Jon Moxley having things his own way, or I don't even know if that's a discussion point or whatnot. You just can't. You cannot drag this down in that direction at the very least, right? You just can't. Hangman was phenomenal, and he had a decisive win, and he's really coming across like you don't feel the anxiety, you don't feel the the self-doubt. Now what we have is a self-assured Hangman. I talked about it last week, and I'm going to talk about it again in a second. But Hangman feels confident. He feels like the top guy. When he won the title, when he first won the title, 2 years ago, 3 years ago at this point, it was a nice little title run. And a lot of people were upset that it wasn't any better and so on and so forth. And I'm pretty sure, if you go back and listen to the tape, I had said at the time, this was not Hangman's definitive reign. Like, this was his first to establish him as a top guy, but this was not his defining reign. This one here is his 10-pole world championship run, though. This is the one that will help make Hangman Adam Page as a top-level guy for years upon years. This is the one here. It has to be good. And him being in control, feeling like he is the top guy, no self-doubt, thanking everyone for their help, but it's like, now we've got work to do kind of thing. Not taking any shit from MJF, not being suckered into bullshit. This is an important evolution. It's an important step in Hangman's character development, one which I was hoping was going to happen as well. So I'm pleased to see this. I'm pleased to see that they are extremely confident in Hangman. Like, you could not have a more clear and defining victory for Hangman for the Hangman and Mox feud than what you had last night. Beats him with beats him at All In Texas at the big stadium show, and then beats him again. Like, now there's no question. And Jon Moxley, ultimately the story they can tell here for, if they ever do want to revisit this, is that Hangman Page has Jon Moxley's number. He just knows how to beat him. Mox can't do it. He doesn't know what to do. When it comes to Hangman, he doesn't know. He doesn't have the secret. He hasn't uncorked it yet. Maybe he never will. Maybe it's just going to be one of these things where, Hangman was just always had Jon Moxley's number. And there's a lot of, so you see, there's so much good that comes out of this. And I think it was important for Hangman to have a really strong win. And I was really, like I said, I was really worried at first, 9 o'clock, the security guards and all that. I was like, this smells fishy, but it wasn't all that fishy. Turns out I was a little worried for nothing. Tremendous finish. Great match. It's a high recommend. Like, this one was over 20 minutes, right? It was like 23 minutes or something. Phenomenal match. And it breezed by. It was awesome. I loved it. Athena and Billy Starks defeat Tony Storm and Alex Winza. They changed their music, though. They don't do the Winza anymore, which was a choice. I figured that the Winza was going to get over. I think a lot of people online were at least enjoying it. anyway, yeah, this was all right. This was fine. I don't have many talking points here outside of how I thought Alex Windsor looked really good here. I think Tony gave her a lot of time and really gave her as many opportunities as possible for her to shine. And I think she looked really good. She was very, very solid in this match. Look, great offense. There was nothing embarrassing here. Alex Windsor was very, very strong. Athena and Toni Storm were great. And, Billy Starks is, I think she struggles. So this was fine. And Athena wins the match for her team by by tagging in blind and hitting the O-face on Tony for the win. And then after the match, Billy Starks throws Alex Windsor into the barricades, and Athena threatens to cash in on Toni Storm. God fucking damn it. I fucking hate these fucking cash-ins. Hangman's being interviewed backstage, but MJF jumps right in to interrupt. And Max basically does the same shtick that he did last week, where, he tries to get into Hangman's head, tries to sucker him into giving an emotional response to him, to a challenge for the world championship. He wants Hangman to give him one, but Hangman again holds his ground and says, "I see what you're doing," and the answer is the same thing as last week. You dummy. You either work to earn the title, or you sign that or you use your contract, but you're not going to do it because you're a coward. And this is what we're going to establish now moving forward for MJF. Willow Nightingale has a quick little promo where she challenges Tekla for on a match on Collision, calling herself the Trapezoid of Grapezoid, and also gives us a great impersonation of Tony Khan. Anyway, so that's going to happen on the Collision show. And the main event, in the main event, Mark Briscoe defeated Ricochet. I thought this was all right. A good little match. Briscoe's toning down the comedy, but we'll get to that in a second. Or the goofiness at the very least. He's trying to be focused and serious now. And he's fighting Ricochet, who is having another tremendous match. The match was very good, okay? The Gates of Agony are there and do all sorts of interference, and it's kind of grating at me. It's they interfere quite a bit in the match, and it's annoying. Ricochet does a standing shooting star press and a vertigo, but eventually Bandito and Brody King come down and fight the Gates of Agony to the back, or the GOA, and Mark hits a J Driller to win the match, getting a nice clean win on Ricochet. Then after the match, cuts a promo, maybe not Mark's most focused promo, but does say that for the first time now he feels like he's alone. He doesn't feel his brother with him because he feels like the paths that he wants to take, that he wants to walk down to go after MJF, are probably creating a distance between him and his brother, and he doesn't like that. Outright says that he wants to kill MJF. So that's getting pretty dark here. MJF appears on the Tonytron to say that their match is next week, but it's also a ruse. It was a pre-taped thing because Max suddenly appears from through the audience to attack Mark from behind, and he low blows him, and he uses a mic shot and is about to use the Dynamite diamond ring on it, but Hangman Page comes out to make the save, and MJF scurries away as people start. I believe the audience was chanting "coward shit," or did I completely make that up in my brain? I am going to be calling, but this is the thing: is that MJF is a coward. He no longer has friends. He's going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place here, as Hangman and Mark Briscoe stand tall in the ring. So it's absolutely coward shit that Max was pulling off this week. And Max has been working with Mark Briscoe. He's been wanting to give Mark Briscoe more shine. I don't think there's anyone who can argue against that. Look, I still maintain that a good underdog run for Mark Briscoe by the sometime this year, next year, whenever you have him win one of your undercard titles, have him have a great run in the Continental Classic this year. These are all things that people will easily get behind because everyone likes Mark Briscoe. It's just as simple as that. I don't know who else does. I don't know who doesn't. And I think Max sees it. And I think there's a lot of value in having a strong Mark Briscoe on your roster. Again, I don't necessarily think he's a guy that should reach the top, but I think a solid mid-card, a strong Mark Briscoe on the mid-card is beneficial. I don't know why you wouldn't push for that. I will be pushing for the end of this review, though. Thank you all very much for jumping in, watching. I was going to say sharing, but you probably haven't yet, but which you should do now. Share this video out there, this podcast episode, wherever it is you listen, and leave a like on YouTube, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. I will be back later this evening on Thursday with a live stream. If you're so inclined, come join us there. Otherwise, we'll be back live streaming next week, and of course the Mr. Warren Hayes Show as well on Wednesday. So thank you all very much for being here once again. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I will see you next time.